Hey guys, so today we are going to get started on our kind of first major text of the quarter, which is the Odyssey. And the Odyssey is written by Homer. Homer was a very, very famous Greek writer, mainly because he was the one who wrote down the two epic poems for that is well known today, which is the Odyssey, of course, which we will be reading, but he also wrote the Iliad, which kind of goes in depth and tells the story of the Trojan War, aka the fall of Troy. And the fall of Troy we need to look at today because it is also known as the Odyssey prequel. It kind of gets us set up for what happens in the Odyssey. So let's go ahead and take a look at the fall of Troy, what happened, and why Odysseus, our main character in the Odyssey, is taking this long journey home. So before we do that, let's look at Greek mythology. Now, I'm sure you all are well aware of Greek mythology and the common gods and goddesses that are well known today. If you've seen Hercules, Percy Jackson, all that, we know that we have Zeus, who is the king of the gods and ruler of the heavens. And another important one we can talk about is Ares, who is the god of war. These are just some, I'm just going over because I know you all are familiar with Greek mythology, but if there are some that we don't go over, we'll probably go over them as we read the Odyssey. But just real quick, we have Zeus, who is, like I said, the king of the gods and goddesses and the ruler of the heavens. Then we have Ares, who is the god of war. And then another one you all might be familiar with is Hades, who is god of the underworld. Now let's not get Hades mixed up with, in Christianity, Satan. Completely different. Again, Greek mythology, this was their religion. This was quite a few years, maybe hundreds, before even Christianity was known about. So just think about it as their religion at the time. This is what they believed. Okay, so we begin to look at the fall of Troy with a wedding. Now, this might be a little off track, but does everyone remember or know the story of Sleeping Beauty? This is just kind of an example to look at, kind of like goes head to head, or kind of similar to what happened with the fall of Troy. And so if we look at Sleeping Beauty, it kind of all got started with Princess Aurora's birth. And we know Maleficent wasn't invited because she was kind of unpredictable. They didn't know what was going to happen if they invited her, and she was kind of a villain type sort. They just didn't want her there. Well, kind of the same thing happened with Mount Olympus, which is just where all the gods and goddesses gather. And there was a wedding on Mount Olympus, and all of the gods and goddesses were invited, except for one. And that one goddess who was not invited was Eris, who is the goddess of chaos. So we can kind of predict as to why she wasn't invited to this gigantic wedding. Kind of like Maleficent might stir up some trouble, kind of unpredictable or chaotic. So they just didn't want her there. So like any kind of person who isn't invited when every single person she knows, or just in general, every person was invited to this one wedding. She might get a little offended, or she did get a little offended. So she decided to kind of take things into her own hands and stir up some trouble or cause some chaos. So she goes to this tree on Mount Olympus that has golden apples. And she picks an apple from the tree, a golden apple, and engraves the phrase, "for the fairest." And that just means for the loveliest, or like in Snow White, fairest of them all, most beautiful, loveliest one in all the land. So then she takes this apple and she sneaks into the wedding, kind of hides herself, plotting and scheming. And she sees Athena, who is the goddess of wisdom, Hera, who is the goddess of marriage, and Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love and beauty. And she sees these three goddesses kind of all gathered together, just gossiping, chit-chatting, talking about all the things that gods and goddesses might talk about. And she takes the apple and she rolls it right in front of them. And of course, they all three see it, and they kind of bicker about who the apple belongs to, because they all believe that they are the fairest. So they're, of course, think it belongs to them. So they decide to go to Zeus and ask him to choose the fairest, or who the apple should go to. And we all know Zeus. For him to be the king of gods and goddesses, he's got to be pretty smart. So he decides to kind of do something not so smart. He didn't want to choose between three of them. He didn't want to get between the three women or goddesses, like most men wouldn't want to do. So he chooses a mortal, which might not have been the best decision because, of course, mortals don't have that high or higher form of wisdom, so he should have probably not have done that. So the mortal he chooses is none other than Paris, the Prince of Troy. Now I'm sure you all kind of know this fella here. He is from the movie Troy, which you all might have seen, just kind of where this picture came from. But the three goddesses, Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite, kind of think they can bribe Paris with who to choose. So Athena offers wisdom. She tells him that he will be the smartest, most wisest one in all of the world. Kings from all over would seek him out for his incredible wit to outsmart and how to make decisions. But then Hera offers marriage to the richest king's daughter. Aphrodite offers love of the most beautiful woman on earth. Now look at Paris here. He's a young, nice-looking man, kind of probably young, 18 or so. He's not going to care about being old and wise. So he doesn't really care about Athena's offer. He kind of considers Hera's, but he's already a prince. He's got all the money he could ever need or want. So like any young 18-year-old would, I'm sure, he chooses the love of the most beautiful woman on earth, who is none other than this lady, Helen. But the problem with Helen is, of course, she's gorgeous, but she's already a married woman to this guy right here. King Menelaus of Sparta. And King Menelaus is not happy that his wife has been stolen from him or taken from him to another man, especially one that looks like that. I mean, I would be kind of upset too if I went looking like this and then my girl gets taken from somebody looking like this. I mean, I'd be pretty upset too. But anyways, he, of course, like any reasonable person would do, decides to start a war against Troy. And he calls up some allies, including his brother Agamemnon, who is with the Greek army, or leader of the Greek army. And he also calls Odysseus, who has his own kingdom in Ithaca. So he gets leaders like Agamemnon and Odysseus to go with him against Troy. And they kind of fight it out. Again, it takes 10 years. They're just fighting. This war is not really going anywhere. So this is kind of where Odysseus kind of rises to fame. Again, what does this have to do with the Odyssey? So we know the Odyssey is all about Odysseus, this guy here. And Odysseus kind of has this reputation as being very, very smart, and he is known for his wit and the ability to outsmart his opponents. So he comes up with this brilliant plan that nobody has ever thought of before. So we get none other than the Trojan horse. So Odysseus is the one who came up with this idea, and basically his troops were going to get some wood from old ships, and they were going to build this horse and kind of offer it or use it as a fake peace offering with Troy, because they kind of use horses like this as their symbol. So they use this Trojan horse to kind of use as a fake peace offering. So they pretend to surrender to Troy, and unknowingly to Troy, they think the war is over. They're excited. They're going to party. And while they're asleep, they don't know that there's actually 20 or so troops with Odysseus, and they are going to kind of break in on them and defeat them. And this is the end of the war, because they have basically killed and defeated, burned Troy. Troy's gone. The fall of Troy is fallen. So that's where the Iliad ends, with the fall of Troy. So now that the war is over, we got to look at Odysseus' journey home. And it is quite a journey that we will get into starting now.